StreamYard updated their stuff. So,
nice.
What's up?
Well, we're live. So, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the live podcast, the EDC Hour with me, Dirk, and Fat Max. Yeah, he's getting big. So, yeah, the Mad Max, the cattle dog. So you're gonna hear probably a bunch of background noise. That's just him like destroying my shit. So don't mind that. That's just, or if I have to jet off, that's because he's about to pull the cord out like he did last week.
That's right. Yep. Hey, at least he didn't chew through the cord.
Yeah, that's something. But we are very excited because we have a pretty special guest today. And he was a fantastic YouTuber, somebody I watched a lot in my younger YouTube career. And now he's still in the knife, collecting realm in the background, still building cool custom knives. And it's Dr. Frunkey, as somebody requested last week. I think a couple of you guys did, maybe. And so we got him on the podcast for you guys. And me and Dirk are going to go ahead and interview him. Doesn't have video today, so don't worry about that. We're just going to do this without video with him. And we're going to kind of get to know what he's been up to since his famous YouTube days, So welcome, Frank.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have you, man. So, I
guess I should say, hey, everyone, Dr. Frunkey here.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. The doc is in the house.
The doc is in the house. That is correct, John.
So I think the best way to do this, because I think a lot of guys already know who you are, but maybe they don't all know how you became Dr. Frunkey, what got you into knife collecting. I know that's cheesy, but maybe a little short backstory of where it started for you. I know you like to cut things for a living, so that's ironic and goes well with your YouTube, stuff. So yeah, just tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for having me here. For those who don't know me, I had a YouTube channel for a little while a few years ago. I stopped making videos about 3 years ago just because of life circumstances and the way things go with growing up and whatnot. But I am a neurosurgeon, and so I cut people for a living. And during my residency training, I was just kind of getting into pocket knives. The way that it all started was way back in the day. I was actually in medical school, and I had a neighbor that was kicked out of the school, and he kind of had a manic episode, and I was kind of feeling like maybe he was a dangerous character. And at that time, I lived in Chicago. You're not allowed to have guns, and you're definitely not allowed to shoot people in Chicago without getting in a lot of trouble. So I ended up buying a K-bar because I went to Google and I was like, tactical knife, or knife for protection. And I ended up getting a K-bar, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I learned about the steel, and then I just kind of went down this rabbit hole where I learned more and more, and I bought a Spyderco, I bought a Benchmade, and then the whole thing started. And by the time I was a second-year resident, I had a small collection of these sort of regular production knives, and I kind of was studying all the other things and watching Nick Shabazz and Kevin Cleary and Jim Skelton and all the guys that kind of started it out. And one of my buddies said, hey, you should start a YouTube channel, a lot, and just start talking about it. And then one thing led to another, and I picked up my Spyderco Nirvana and made a video about it, and then I just went on from there. I made about 450 videos or something close to that over the course of those next few years, and here we are.
Outside of the Chicago and being afraid of my, neighbor or whatever, it's very similar to me. I, just had a knife just because I kind of needed a knife for daily stuff. And I spent way too much time watching Nick Shabazz and Jim Skelton. So I blame Jim for a lot of the money that I have spent over the years.
Jim's a good friend of the channel for sure.
he's a good friend of the channel. We chat all the time, so I'm not saying anything negative or behind his back. But he has spent a lot of my money selling me knives that he used to own. First off, I own several. I own one that he built, and then just him promoting and talking about different things. Much like you, I got into my Frank Fisher battle problem by watching Jim do a video on a couple, and I was hooked. And then, yeah, much like you, a buddy told me I should start a YouTube channel, and I went with my Spyderco police model as my first video. And here I am almost 5 years later. So
there you go. I think that the Spyderco is that gateway knife, you know.
it is the gateway knife. Yep, Spyderco, Benchmade. Once you evolve out of those, it's kind of all downhill.
Yeah, and definitely the something about that battle blade shape, you know, it's so intoxicating, and you know, it skirts that line between gas station special and true custom artwork, and those who know, they know.
Yep.
And I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and so I got my first one a few years back, and I was hooked, and I end up, I don't even know. I've got 7 battles now, something like that. I'd have to look.
You really have an insane collection of them, and I'm very jealous of them. They're really beautiful.
Thank you. It's been, like I said before we started, like I'm not rich or anything. I'm just completely irresponsible. But when it comes to the Fisher family, I really like all 3 of them: Todd Sr., Todd Jr., and Frank. And I've got something from all of them. Todd Sr. is actually working on a project for me right now.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's pretty good. It's going to be pretty basic, but I did hit 10,000 subscribers recently on my channel, and in December will be 5 years. So I figure I'm going to do a giveaway. So I'm going to give away something that Todd Sr. is making for me. Well,
oh wow,
you guys, I guess not really for me. Well, kind of, sort of, but yeah, more on that later. Once you know, but he is actively working on it. We're going to give that away in December. So
that's incredible. Congratulations on that milestone. That's a big deal. I think that my channel only ever got to 14 or something like that. So it was not, you know, not a huge thing, but very, you know, influential at a certain point.
So I have been carrying a battle now for 312 days. I think today is 312.
Wow.
For the
nice
here. So this one used to be Abe's originally, that Jim did a video on like 8-9 years ago, and I was hooked, and ultimately I was able to get it myself. And so now I've done a challenge to carry it for a year. So at the end of December will be a year, and then I'll do a video on what is it like to carry the same knife for an entire year. It's interesting.
I applaud your effort. I have to switch it out at most days. I can do 2 or 3 days in a row, but after that, I have to switch it. Even if I don't use it, I just got to switch it.
That was my norm, 2 to 3 days, sometimes every day, sometimes twice a day, right? Because you got to get the right for Instagram. But yeah, I just kind of was going to do a 30 days, and then it just kind of evolved. So
awesome.
Yeah. So
I think,
we got a question here from Al.
Yeah, what does
Frank carry these days? That's a good question.
Yeah.
And what is your collection at today? Like, where are you at with things?
Well, I have, I still collect. I still talk to a lot of makers, and I still talk to a lot of the community. I have, you know, I've stopped doing the YouTube channel. I've stopped posting on Instagram for the most part. I think that, you know, as I became an attending physician, as I kind of became a real doctor, things got a little hairy with like responsibilities, and you know, I don't want to be Instagramming when I'm supposed to be on call and like saving people and stuff. So I just decided I had to change that part, and it was hard. You know, that was a big part of my life, and I think that, but I still collect. You know, I still go to the shows. I still go to Blade Show every year. I've been every year since you know, I don't even know. It's probably been 5 or 6 times now, and but I still have some custom pieces. I would say that it evolves a lot still. What I'm carrying from time to time. Right now, in my pocket, most of the time, and most recently, has been a knife from Taze Meads. His new swordfish model is absolutely amazing.
Okay.
That guy is quite an artist, man.
You know,
Like
yeah.
he's just like the fine details that are so good that you can see them, you know? That's the
Hmm.
kind of knife maker I find that guy to be.
I mean, he's very much into making the traditional knives, so he's totally honed his skills there. And the traditional knives are very simple, and so you have to set yourself apart by being extremely detail oriented.
Yep.
And he decided a couple years ago. He said, "Hey, Frank, I want to make a tactical knife. This market is just so much bigger and broader, and I think that I've had a lot of people ask me for it." So he made the Guardian was his, I think, original tactical design, and then he made this swordfish. So it's a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter,
Mm.
and it just has every single bit of his excellence, dripping from it. So I love it. I have had a hard time getting it out of my pocket recently.
What
Awesome.
materials did you go with on that build?
Um, I wish that I posted more about it. It has brown paper micarta. So it's this stuff that's called Tootsie Roll micarta. It looks exactly like the color of Tootsie Roll, like that
Mhm.
dark chocolate. And it had double white lines. And so the back spacers kind of shows the white lines. And then it has these pearl bolsters, and the blade is Norris Fire Clone 2, and it's just really pretty.
Nice.
Wow, nice. That's a very nice setup.
I regret that I didn't get set up for video today. I would be sharing it right here on the screen with you guys. I regret that right now.
That's
No,
okay.
it's
We can
totally
do it
good.
again, man.
If this all goes well, we will gladly have you back again later.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I miss doing podcasts. I see someone mentioned the Knife Life podcast. That was one of the
Yep.
podcasts
Listen
I
to
did
that.
back in the day, and that was a fun time. And it's fun. I'd be happy to be a guest anytime.
Awesome.
Cool.
Good to hear. What is John saying here? He goes, I bought my first Nick Chuprin MK1 and my first Robert Carter because of Dr. Frunkey. Robert Carter
Aw.
is an amazing guy.
Yeah, we've had him on the show too, actually.
Yeah, and he's actually asked to come back like
Yeah.
a couple of times since he was on. So apparently he enjoyed it as well, and he was great to have on. And I've talked with him a lot. At some point, he's gonna build something for me. We're just not sure yet. He's fixing some other knives, and he goes, "Look, if I can fix this knife for one guy, and I get it right, I'm gonna send it back to you because I did a video on it to begin with, and then it went to Robert to get fixed." And he says, "If I fix it, then you got to buy a knife from me." I'm like, "Dude, if you can fix that messed up thing, I guess." And I've done several videos on Rob's knives before too. So, but yeah, he's just a genuine, down to earth, nice guy. Damn.
Well, in springboarding off of your comments about the battle, I followed Jim Skelton's video on the battle early on. I was like, holy crap, that's an amazing knife. And then it led me down the path of he made a video on one of Rob's F-16s back in the day too. I
Yep.
don't think I really realized it, but it was when Frank and Rob, they did a collaboration on the Talon,
That's
and
right.
that knife was like this hallelujah moment where I was like, this is the one. And that ended up being the first knife that I really spent big money on. And big
Okay.
money at that time, I think I spent like $2,700 on it. And since then it's been much more than that for certain
Oh yeah.
knives, and that's not
Yep.
even that much money in today's custom
No.
world. But
25, $3,000. That's almost nothing
yeah.
to the
That's
higher end
crazy.
collectors. I mean, that's a lot to the Spyderco Benchmade guys. Nothing against that, but
And it just ended up in this situation where I was talking to both of these guys, and I felt like I was talking to, like, you know, rock stars, Elvis
yes,
and Mick Jagger at the same time. I don't know whoever your rock star heroes are, James Hetfield, I'm like, hey, yeah,
yep,
there we go. This is my hero. And they made me a knife, and it just went out of control from there.
yeah,
That's
I
cool.
totally understand. Same exact thing for me when I've talked to these guys. I'm a little starstruck when we had Jim on the the podcast here the first time. I was a little starstruck, and I'd been talking to him for a long time, but to actually have him on our show and stuff like that, it was kind of fun. We've had Jim on a couple of times. Rob's been on once. Todd Senior was on recently.
Very cool.
So yeah, we've had a lot of good guests, we think. But yeah, like we said at the beginning, we asked last week or 2 weeks ago when we did the show, who do people want to see? And your name came up by a couple of people. I think Luck Knives might have been the first one to throw your name out there, and here we are. So we're great.
I appreciate that. And, keeping on with the topic of Rob, he's a very special maker to me. When I did my residency, this is when I was really basically all of the Frunkey period there. I was in Shreveport, Louisiana at that time. That's where I did my training. He lived just across the border in Texas. He's in Hillister, Texas, which is like less than an hour from where I was. So we talked and we met up a couple of times, and I just got really into his knives. I have 3 of his pieces right now. I have a Talon. He has a collab piece, the Warhawk, which is sort of a battle combined with the Warbird that they made together. So this sort of half and half. And then I have one of his custom BBMs. And so he is a maker that I will always support. He's a good human. He's just a down-to-earth, hardworking guy. And I don't know if you know this, but he's also invincible. He is literally unkillable.
Yeah.
Oh, I know exactly what you're referring to.
he exploded himself on an ATV accident, and then a few months ago he also got struck by lightning apparently, and that was also didn't kill him. So I'm pretty sure he's invincible.
Wow.
He's invincible, so that's great. Yeah, the Warbird I think is one of the models that I might have him build for me. I wish it was just a little bigger.
I mean, if you just tell him to make it bigger, he'll figure it out, man. I'm telling you.
I think that's what I may do, because that's a very user-friendly shape. The battle is practical, but not practical, right? It's one of those things.
Yes.
The Warbird is more of kind of a little recurve and a normal-ish shaped blade. So I think something along those lines might be what I do from him. We'll see. That's a next year project for sure. I got too much going on this year. And at some point, I got to do some house projects. So maybe it's a year after next year. I don't know. We'll see.
When it happens,
Agreed. Absolutely. We got Professor EDC in the house, which is nice. We haven't seen him in a little bit. Says, sup, guys? Awesome to have Dr. Frunkey. Been following him for the longest time. Well,
thank you.
You guys asked. We listened, and we made it happen. So like we have always said, if you guys have specific people you would like to have on the show, let us know, and we will do our best to make it happen. It might not happen the very next show like it did this time, but sometimes it does.
Well, so tell me, guys, what was your most recent acquisition? What are you carrying right now?
Well, for me, I'm still carrying the Battle, but my most recent acquisition was from Darren Thomas, a Raku he's the twin brother of Devin Thomas, who made the steel here and is the uncle of Laren Thomas, who invented MagnaCut. So there's a lot of history there with the Thomas family. And I picked this up in West. Just a
strong bloodline there.
Oh, for sure. And it's a button lock, and I'm not really into button locks, but this doesn't feel like a button lock. The detent is not button lock-ish. And I know it's not really a detent. It's this. You guys know what I mean. Like somebody called me out. They're like, it's not a detent. No shit, it's not a detent. But it's the process. It's the point of the detent, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, it's just super cool. And yeah, Darren's just a great guy too. Just super down to earth. Yeah, we sat and chatted for hours at Blade Show West, and I met him the year before, and so I had to buy it. It wasn't that expensive. It was like $1,100-$1,200, so it wasn't much. And it's great. So that's my most recent.
I gotta get on it and start following him. I don't know that I'm following his work right now. Gotta do it. I love finding new people.
You should follow him. He's great. Great bloodline. Yeah, just it's very cool. And he'll sit and tell you, he's one of 12 children. One of them is his identical twin brother, but was 11 other pregnancies. And he's got 6 kids of his own, 5 or 6 kids of his own. and then his brother Darren, his identical twin Devin, has like 6 kids. One of them has 6, one of them has 5. So yeah, they've got a lot of kids in the family.
Awesome.
Which is fun. What about you, Alex? What's the most recent thing you've got?
Actually, the most recent knife I bought, I put in a box and already sent to you.
Sweet.
It was Microtech Mini Hera that they came out with for Halloween, and it's looks like it's wrapped like a mummy.
Yep.
And then it has like a acid wash dagger, double edged blade on it. I have been carrying this. I put this to actually finish putting this together yesterday. It's a modded Spyderco Man X2. This was a G10 model, and then these scales kind of remove the liners, so they're made of aluminum. They're pretty light.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I have a shitty camera, so you can't really see like the nice fine milling on texturing on the scales.
Yep.
It's like a topographic milling, yeah.
Yeah, but it's the graphic doesn't actually stand up, but they got like little fine line, like linear texture all over, so kind of feels nice to the touch. And this is the S90, CPM 154 model, kind of like a little sandwich.
Yep.
With the
Very
tritium.
nice.
So like I like modding Spydercos a lot. I was showing Dirk too, like some of my PM2s have all the blade shapes.
He's got all the blade shapes, and he's modded all of them.
And they're all like modded. So like I like modding PM, Spyderco stuff. I do have like some fun customs too. Yeah, I don't know, like I'm kind of getting itchy for another like bigger custom. I just haven't figured out where
Oh boy.
I'm gonna spend the money at, but maybe in the next couple months I might buy some fancy. We'll see.
I still have a customized PM2 in my rotation. I have a Maximet PM2 that's got some carbon fiber with some gold flake. I got some gold flake carbon from one of the Russian guys a really long time ago, and I got I think it was Sharp Dress Knives made some carbon, made the scales for me, and got some bronze hardware on it. So it gets in the rotation every now and then. Old Faithful PM2, can't go wrong.
No, that's very cool. Satu Dave, thanks for joining in. He goes, hey, all, had to jump in and listen, watch. He's watched so many of Dr. Frunkey's videos over the years. Yeah, we thought we might get some people jumping in because of that.
I appreciate it, guys. I'm sorry I'm not making them anymore.
Yeah, no, it's good. We go back and watch them still anyway. Knife Life says, Doc, what was the knife that wowed you the most the very first time you held it?
Oh wow, that's quite a question right there. I gotta think on that one. What knife wowed me?
I'll say one of the ones that surprised me the most. Well, you're thinking is this Tim Gallion XL Junkyard Dog.
Hey, that one is pretty legendary, right? That one is epic.
It is. And
wow.
I got it through Jim Skelton, sent it to me because he was going to sell it. And he said, hey, you want to film it before it goes to Recon 1 to sell? I said, yeah, dude, I always need videos, right? Because I'm the idiot, the weird guy that came up with I should post a video every single day. So I have done a video every single day for almost 5 years now. And it gets a little tough because I don't own enough knives to do that on my own. So Alex sends me some, Jim sent me some, all these people in the chat, Knife Life has sent me some, whatever. And when I got that out of the box and I opened it the first time, the flipping action was unlike any other knife I had ever felt, and sound. And I literally made up my mind at that point, I'm not sending this to Recon 1. It's staying. And we worked it out and it stayed and it's still here. So that's for me is the one that kind of just was an eye-opening moment when I opened that one. Not to say that any of these other things that I own or have seen are not impressive, because I mean, I have a Stan Wilson non-flipper flipper I own, so completely impressive. But something about just the way that felt, the way it sounded, just couldn't let it go.
Well, Tim is an amazing machinist and a really excellent knife maker. one of the problems with doing knife reviewing and having an opinion about things is that sometimes you ruffle some feathers. I don't think Tim likes me very much because he had a collaboration, a knife with zero tolerance a couple of years ago. I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
I remember that knife.
But you know, I didn't really like it very much. It had plastic. It looked not really that great in my opinion, and I said that openly. And he didn't really appreciate that, and so I feel bad about that in a sense. But that's what happens when you review stuff. You have to be honest to people.
Yeah, and I've gotten some. I won't say hate, but I've gotten some grief over some stuff I've said. But again, I just got to be honest about it. Not everything is the greatest knife I've ever handled.
Yeah.
And if it ruffles some feathers, I'm sorry. If I made a mistake, I'll come back and say, hey, guys, I misspoke on this thing. It wasn't this, but how it feels in your hand, all that stuff is very subjective. And so for me, I'm just going to tell you how it feels to me. You may have a different opinion. And if a maker gets upset, a maker gets upset. I think I've had 2 people over the years ask me to take a video down. And I politely said no. And I never talked to them again. And that's okay.
I have also had that happen in the past, and I did not. I did take down, I think, one video at one point, but that was a Will Moon video. He and I have made amends since then. And
oh man, Will Moon, I remember that guy.
It's an interesting industry.
I had a modified knife by Will Moon. He modded a ZT, I think it was a 0620, like the Emerson style one with the weight.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And he did a really cool grind on it, just like a really cool kind of Tonto hollow grind, kind of made it resemble like the grind on like the custom Marfion SOCOMs back in the day. And there was a couple of issues I had though with like blade play and stuff like that. And man, over the years, like I always wanted to like his customs a lot because there was something about the design, like the aesthetics, that was kind of cool and kind of just him. Like when you looked at a Will Moon knife, you knew it was a Will Moon knife.
Right.
But the horror stories that guy has like created,
legendary horror stories, right?
Yeah. Will is a guy with tremendous ambition and a lot of talent. And he sort of just kind of tripped right before the finish line too many times. And the feedback was just there. And I agree with you. They were beautiful designs. You know, they had awesome innovations and he used great materials, but then like the lockup didn't work or it was gritty or it was way off center or something else really bad was happening. And I felt bad. You know, we had a chat at Blade Show one year where he was saying, you know, I had really negatively impacted his livelihood and he basically had to give up his knife making entirely because of what happened. You don't want that to happen to anyone. You know, I don't want to influence anyone out of their livelihood, but you know, if you don't got it, you don't got it.
Yeah, that's a lot of,
well, I think where his failure was not like necessarily his knife making. It was him ghosting people and not like and his reaction of like when you finally get a hold of him and say there's a problem, how he treats that situation, you know. And it's unfortunate because like you said, I think it was like a waste of talent. There's some cool knives that he built that I was like, man, that's like got some really cool lines. But if it doesn't lock up, then you know it's it don't lock up.
Right.
Customer service is key. Yes.
Yeah, the customer service thing, like communication, right? And I'm going through this right now with a couple of makers. Well, I just went through it with a maker who I sent some stuff in for spa, and it was they confirmed they got it, said there'd be a couple of weeks. Like 2 months later, I have to follow up, and then I hear nothing for weeks, and then another month goes by. So it was like 5 months, and there was very little communication throughout the process. And it makes me think about some other makers that I have friends that have paid for knives, and they're 18, 20 months out and almost zero communication from two different makers. And it's like, guys, it's in today's world of technology, there's almost no excuse to not respond to somebody.
Yeah, we say the name. Say the name.
I'm not saying names because I don't want to put it out there, but they're very well-known makers, and there's 3 of them in general, and one of them, well, 2 of them, well, 3 of them, they've got book orders, they've taken money from people, and they're not working on their knives, but yet they're posting up, hey, I just finished this knife, it's for sale. Or they're emailing their newsletter saying, hey, I've got 2 of these models available on Friday, first come, first serve, but they're not working on the custom knives. Now,
if I can make a,
Go ahead.
If I can make a recommendation to anybody, especially guys getting into the game early, do not pay for these things up front. Just don't.
Oh. Now they may need a deposit. I'm okay with that at some level because they need to buy the materials maybe to make your knife and things like that. Okay. Yes. But that's it. Never pay in full. Don't listen to their sob story about, oh, my machine is broken. Can you pay me in full so that I can get busy doing it? This and that. No, just don't, because you're going to wait 18, 20, 2 years with very little communication. Mm-hmm. And the chances of getting your money back is slim to none. The chance of getting a knife, maybe. And it's just sad.
I would say that most of these people will eventually make good on it. You know, they're still making knives, and they'll eventually have to come around. And you know, if you make a stink about it, this community is not that big. You know, they're probably you see the same faces over and over again. And if it gets out that this maker, that maker is not keeping their word, it's going to affect their business, and they can't really do that. So
yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. I won't. People have asked me about these makers. I'm like, look, they do great work. Here's the problem. I know 2 people that have paid over about 2 years ago, and they still don't have their knives.
I had one maker that I had build a one-off custom thing. I had sent him a small deposit, and I had sent him some materials for the scales. And the build was, I think, 2.5 or 3 year wait for it to the knife to be completed. And the maker the entire time, every couple months would sporadically be like, hey dude, I haven't started on your knife yet. I have all your stuff here though. Hey dude, hey, you're kind of moving along on the list. Like every few months he contacted me.
Yep.
And I never cared. Like it never bothered me. I'm like, I got this custom knife coming. It's banked. And it'll be here when it'll be here. And it never bothered me the entire wait, just for the mere fact that the guy continuously, without me asking, contacted me and said something. And most of the time he really had nothing to say at all. And I was like, cool, dude, whatever, man, do your thing. And we're talking about a guy, I think he's a little bit younger. So if I remember right, I think he had a full-time job and doing college, and a stretched individual who makes really nice knives, Lodato knives out of New York. And man, that guy is really oh my God, I love that kid's work, man. He's so good.
And again, it goes back to communication. If you're telling me every few months sporadically, hey, I haven't forgot about you, I'm still working on your stuff, I'm busy with school, I'm busy with it, then I have no problem. And if they tell you up front, hey, it might be 2 years before I'm done, okay, then because there are some makers that you may wait 2 or 3 years, 5 years. There are some makers that are 5-year waits. That's different. These makers should not be 1 year waits, let alone 2 year waits. These should be 6 month waits, maybe. But
I think Scott Cook's list is 9 years. There's some makers out there, but it just takes that one line, that one message where you just say, I'm working on it. It's going to be another few months. And you just say, okay, no problem. I've had that same experience. It just
Yep.
takes one sentence to just say, "Hey, you're thinking about me. You have your list and you're working through it. No one is perfect, and these things take time. I'd rather it be perfect than be rushed."
Yep.
Absolutely. And I think that's just key to life
Now,
Mhm.
is
on a flip
communication.
side, though, on a flip side, I had an instant where I sent a knife in to get fixed by a
Mhm.
maker we all know, and it sat there for a little bit, and somebody in the chat messages me a picture of his knife. He's like, "Hey, check this one out. You know, it's just getting finished and sent to me." And I'm like, "Say what? He's supposed to
Right.
be working on my knife. How'd you get ahead of me on the list?" You know, and then I like lashed out at the nicely lashed out at the
Yeah.
maker. And then my shit got done real fast after that. That was
Mhm.
funny, man. It was like the
Right.
chances of two customers talking and saying, "Hey, what the f?"
You know,
Yeah, I
and
mean, that's the thing people need to remember is it is a small community and we all know each other. Like not all
Yeah,
know each other,
yeah,
but a lot of us do know and go in the same circles and the same like Facebook groups and same Instagram things and the word's going to get out.
yeah.
yes, that was
Uh,
you, Left Knives.
The Shiro Cook collab lock.
Oh, I saw that.
I
Locksaw,
saw
I
that.
need that knife so badly. I wanted that so badly. It looks
That's
so good.
the integral, and I think it was $2,400 on the lotto from Recon One. I don't
So
really do
this
lottos much, but that was a cool looking knife.
So this loops back to the question that was asked earlier, and I'm
Yep.
I'm actually really glad you just brought that up. They asked what was the knife that kind of wowed me from the
Yes.
beginning, and it really goes all the way back to my very first YouTube video. It was the Spyderco Nirvana. It was the Resenti
Yep.
Nirvana because of the integral handle. I still say integral because that's how Jim said it, but it's integral, whatever.
I know.
Uh,
Yeah.
and but it's the integral handles for me. And action is one thing, materials are another thing, but to me the one piece folding knife handle, it still gets me every
Yes.
time.
100%.
Even this year at Blade Show, one of my most recent acquisitions is an integral handle from Grind Tactical Knives from Thomas Goni,
Okay.
GT Knives from
Mhm.
France. He
Nice.
made an integral zircutai handled
Mhm.
Damacor bladed. It's crazy. I wish I could show it to you. It's all green, Frunkey green. Someone shouted out the Frunkey
Yeah.
green in here.
Somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's green zircutai integral with the
Oh,
Damacor blade. It's insane. And
yeah.
this is everything that I love about knives. It's a one piece handle. It's all the
Yep.
flashing materials, and it's made by a maker that I know personally, and I like him as a human being, and that's what it's all about.
That's
That's
cool,
awesome.
man.
And yeah, the integrals or integral handles are just impressive to me. The engineering, and I know like some machinists are going to say it's not really that big a deal, but it
It's
is. To me,
not. It's
it's
not.
impressive.
Yeah,
And the
and it just
Nirvana
gives
is a
that
very cool
sense
knife.
of it gives that sense of, I don't know, strength that you just don't get in a screwed
Yep.
together knife. I don't know what it is, but
I
that
don't know either. It's just captivating to me as well. I don't think I own any. I did a video on a blacked out Nirvana once. Oh,
mm,
that one was tough to send off to the owner. That one went to Aussie Mike down in Australia. He ordered
Mm.
it, sent it here, and then he buys a lot of stuff here in the States, sends it to me. I film them, and then every few months I put together a box and I ship it down to Australia. So, but yeah, the blacked out Nirvana was super cool. The action was amazing.
there are not many knives that I look back and I say, I really wish I had kept that knife.
Mhm.
It happens every now and then, but one
Yep.
of them was I had that Nirvana, and then I got it modified by Razor's Edge Knives,
I
and
remember
he
that.
reground it, and man, he made it perfect. It would like cut through the fabric of space time. It was so sharp,
Yeah, yeah.
and it didn't have any stick, and it was just a perfect thing. And now they don't make it anymore, and he's on making his own knives now, and gone on and done great things. He's still doing awesome stuff over there. But
Yep.
yeah, that one stuck with me.
Yeah, and Napster Ninja, this year I bought a secondhand Spyderco Nirvana with a regrind, My most expensive knife in the collection. It's so nice.
Maybe it's
the
my
Nirvana
long
is
lost
just
knife.
a cool knife.
Yeah, maybe it is. I know. I know that what's the other dude that used to do a lot of regrinds? There's one guy that used to regrind them a lot too back in those days. It was man, it's skipping me.
Not John over Rotten.
No, no, no. He reground my Benchmade, but not
Yeah.
that guy. It was he makes his own fixed blades too. I can't remember.
Dwayne Dwyer. Yeah, let's not go to
Never
Dwayne
mind.
Dwyer.
Yeah, I'll let it go. But there was a guy that used to continuously regrind the Nirvanas, and I think he got like the idea from your old knife. Not much
cool.
long after that. That was pretty cool.
Someone shouted out to Mike Raymond.
Tom Crine, that's who it is.
Tom Crine?
Tom Crine. Yeah,
somebody talks about the Michael Rappaport Starlet.
The Michael Raymond Starlet. Mike Raymond is a legend of legends. I mean, he is a disciple of Scott Cook. So we've talked about the Locksaw already here. They're doing the Shirogorov collab. Mike Raymond learned what he knows from Scott Cook. And Mike Raymond is that level of perfection. And I think he follows in that same thing. He makes integral handles because they're just better. They may not be, more intricate. They might be somewhat simple, but they're just perfect. So
yeah,
those are investment pieces.
I will need to add an integral to my collection at some point. The fact I don't have one is odd to me too. Sometimes I look at.
I have a couple production ones. I had one by the Synergy with a Damas steel blade. Yeah, that one I still have it back there somewhere. That was kind of a cool, sleek, like no backspacer, just all one piece of titanium. Looks pretty cool. Never try to take it apart though.
Props to We Knives. They have made some pretty impressive integrals over the years. Really.
Yes.
They have them and Riot. Riot's too. And those two, like early on in the knife years, like there was a lot to like try to, I don't know, the whole Chinese knives thing that people used to say, and and even me, like early on, some of the Wii knives, they just look so obnoxious, like they didn't look.
Some of their designs are a little out there.
Yeah, and over the years when they started collaborating with these makers, they started really figuring things out, and they're at a level now which is so impressive to me. Those two, and a lot of other Chinese manufacturers are good too, but those two in particular have kind of set the tone of like high-end production manufacturing, in my opinion.
And all of the American, what would be equivalents have completely fallen off. I mean, where is zero tolerance these days? They say they have a new product release coming out next week or something, and we all know we're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. We already know that's the problem. We already
Millet
know
knives,
it's not going to be anything exciting.
Millet knives went down in flames. Whatever American manufacturing, that was doing this well, they don't exist anymore. I think they're, we should start this company at some point where we get this up and going. But man, it's just there's really a gap there from the American side, and we and Riyadh have just crushed the competition with their quality.
They really have.
And a lot of that I think comes from back in the day when Todd Begg started doing his Steelcraft stuff. Mark and Todd, they went over to Japan and they spent, or China, and they spent a lot of time training them on how
as a lot of makers have,
and really got them to dial in their Steelcraft bodegas. And that kind of, I don't know if it totally put them on the map, but that was a big thing for we and Riot, because they both did some runs of them. And yeah, you couldn't go wrong with those older school. Now they've got new ones that Mark Begg is doing at a different place in China that he doesn't talk about, but they're different. They're way more budgety friendly. They're $100 knives instead of $400 knives.
Yes.
Little different deal, but that's okay. What do we got? John here says, I have a Marfion custom that's a Strider collab of the SNG integral, and a Maverick Customs integral. Maintenance is easy on an integral. Is it? I've never taken one apart.
Yeah,
I've always nervous I wouldn't be able to
there's
get
only
stuck.
one screw. There is just the one screw.
But when the bearings and everything fall out, I was worried about, can I get them all back in there to put the pivot back in?
I don't know if anyone has like an IKBS integral. That would be a real nightmare. That would actually.
Oh, that would be bad.
That's the stuff of nightmares. Yeah.
Yes.
That would be a poor choice in design, though.
Yes. I don't even know how they would build it in the first place, really. He has one, the Hathaway knife Saros, waiting on the F-gel.
The Fiel. I'm not familiar with that. I think I follow Hathaway knives, but I don't know those models.
Napster Ninja, the regrind. My Nirvana had a regrind from someone called Micah Sunny Tag.
Oh, I remember that guy.
It was my Grail knife on my list. I preferred the original form, but any available Spyderco Nirvana is better than none, at least in my mind. Nah, that's cool.
Man, I'm gonna have to hit up Peter Rosenti for another Nirvana after this podcast. This is bad.
Oh boy. Well, you can, if you want to share with the world, since you're not doing videos, you can always send them to me. I'll share with the world, and then I'll send them to you.
Look, I could send you my whole. I've got something around 15, 16 custom knives right now, and it usually sits around that. I have 2 of those Pelican cases with 8 slots. So once it gets over 16, I got to start dumping. I sold a few knives in the past few weeks because I just ran out of space.
Well, that's a good comment. Good question. Good topic there. So you have a limit of knives that you have.
I set a limit because you can get really carried away. You know, I'm in a group chat with some of the sort of old school knife reviewer guys, you know, Epic Snuggle Bunny, Nick Shabazz, a bunch of the other guys, Eugene, Kevin Cleary, all these guys. We still have this group chat going. And, you know, Austin, Epic Snuggle Bunny, has somewhere on the spectrum of like 400 knives. And he's like, man, I got to get rid of some of these. And I just can't, I could never do it because I just kind of parlay that money onto the next one. And I can't sit there and look at $100,000 of pocket knives and be like, what am I doing with my life?
So, you know, I don't have a limit of anything. I don't have a price limit. I don't have a quantity limit. I had a limit way back years ago that I would never spend more than $500 on a knife. Well, several Frank Fisher battles and a non-flipper tells me I lied, obviously. And I spent way more than $500 on a knife. I spent 5 figures on knives now. And again, it goes back to I'm not rich, I'm irresponsible. But it's just me. I live alone. I have a girlfriend. My kids are old. I own my house. The bank owns my house, but you know, I'm responsible enough. But
you have the ability to do that, and it's not going to ruin your life. And
correct.
You know, I'm in a similar situation. I could really be extremely irresponsible with my knife collecting, but I decided I have a case. I have these 2 cases.
Yep.
And when it gets to be the point where I have more than 16 knives, I just move them and I just move on to the next one because there will always be another one.
I envy that. My brother is a collector, mostly Chris Reeve knives. He loves Chris Reeves. He's part of the admin group of the Chris Reeve fan page on Facebook, all that. And he has about 10 or so pocket knives and a couple of fixed blades just laying around. And he keeps it at that 10, mostly CRK. And he's got one Hellraiser that I gave him and things like that. But he keeps it at 10-ish. I can't do that yet, but I do look at my collection, and in the drawers back here, I've got a bunch of knives. I got some in the safe. I got some laying in the kitchen, some in the, they're all over the house. And sometimes I look at these things, I'm like, why? Why do I have that I never carry? Because I'm just not going to carry some of them. I mean, they're not safe queens, but like I've got a Phil Harvey Peacemaker. it's 2 pounds. I'm not going to
You
carry
can't. You can't even really carry that at all unless you have a backpack. Yeah.
like so there's just knives that I own that I'm just not going to carry other than maybe to a show in a case to show off things like that. But there's a lot of money. You mentioned like $100,000. Yeah, like I'm in that ballpark ish, and we don't talk about that, but yeah, it's a big number of knives, dollar amount that's just sitting here collecting dust.
Well, I'll
And
tell you, even at 16 knives, you can get up close to that number too. When I look at the
yes,
actual, what did I spend on these 16? I mean, most of them cost at least 2,000. Some of them
you,
three, some of them five. And so even at 10 to 20 knives, you can get right up to that number. And so that's
oh,
part of the thing.
sure.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah,
somebody
I have
loan me a box of knives the other day, and there was like 8 knives, and it was $100,000 plus box.
Yeah.
you know that part where you buy the knives and then you enjoy them and then you sell it and get something else. Well,
Hmm.
the part where the sell it part is the part that I always skip.
Right. I just buy something
So
else.
Yeah.
I just buy something else, and then and I have sold stuff. Actually, I had 1 year I liquidated probably like close to 55 knives. But in like the last 11, 12 years of buying shit, it just collects, and some of them are not expensive at all, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them are pretty expensive. It just kind of, a little bit of everything. I don't know. I like having a whole bunch. I've talked about downsizing for years. Haven't done it yet.
You
Especially
just
like the ones that you modify, like that are kind of like your own
Right.
little unique thing. I don't
it
know.
gets hard too because you love what you love, and
Yep.
you might want to put it out there and not everyone else is going to love it and they're going to lowball you and you're like, man, I just lost
Yeah.
money on this. And I've had to do that too many times. I get excited, I pay too much for something that I think is special, and then 6 months later the market is softer, kind of like right now for whatever reason, and it makes it hard, and you're like, but I still do it.
Yes.
I keep cycling through it. I've just made this pact with myself that I'm gonna suffer that pain and then just keep it moving and move it to the next one. There are now, but I'm at a place now. I have some knives that I have very personal connections. What I do now mostly is I do blade show, acquisitions where I meet up with people and
Yep.
like I have dinner with them and we talk about life and family and everything in between. And then they build me a knife and I'm like, man, all of these memories are associated with this. So much of it is, if you're ordering it on Instagram and you're like, hey, build me a knife with these materials, and then you get it, you don't have a personal connection
Right.
sometimes. Or if you buy a Spider Co from Blade HQ, you don't necessarily feel a
Agreed.
connection every time. But now I'm at a place where I have half of my collection are these interaction
Yes.
experience knives, and it would be like selling
Yeah.
my wedding ring or something like that. You just don't do
Yeah.
that.
I totally feel you there because I've gotten to know all of these makers now. Like I talk to Todd Fisher Sr. all the time. I talk to Ed Kim over at Red Horse. Those are two of my like favorite brands that I have, makers and things. And in talking with all these people, you build connections with them. You meet them at the shows. I've gone to dinner with several of them, and it's really a special bond and a knife now. If I get something from them, especially if they built it for me, that's even more.
Friendship
And
knife, yeah.
yeah, and it makes it hard to sell those because you can't really put a price on all the memories, the interaction, the relationship with that maker.
And then you feel like you're betraying them in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, like I got, Todd Senior made he makes battles now because Frank can't at the moment, and this was his prototype that went
I
for
saw you when
410.
you got that one. That's so sweet.
And I tried to help promote it and stuff, and so I kind of bid. There was like hours left. I thought, okay, I'll bid just to kind of put it at the top of the list again, right? Figuring I'm gonna get outbid. Nope. So
Yeah.
I like, and I initially I didn't want to buy it. I was like just trying to bid it up. And once I bought it and I knew it, I won. I was super stoked. And that because Todd and I had talked so much during the build of it, how I was going to help promote it and all these things, it just became my knife anyway. So I'm glad to have it. And again, it's one of those things I don't know that I could sell, but I don't say I'm going to keep a knife forever because I know too many people that say that. And I actually own their knives that they said they would never sell. Like it's happened.
It's true. I think everything does have a price. You know, if someone came at me with some absurd number, you know, I could be convinced to sell basically anything I own. But
yes,
yeah,
or
it's hard.
You may fall on hard times. Like you may get laid off. You may have, you know, come down with some disease, like life situation. You may need to liquidate all your knives because of circumstances, right? So I'm not ever going to be like, hey, if I got to pay the mortgage or keep my battle, hey, the battle's for sale, guys. I got to pay the mortgage. So I'm not that irresponsible.
Right.
Okay, what's John saying here? He goes, I have over 45 customs, and I stopped buying customs unless they were super special these days. But it got
me too.
Got bad for a while, and sometimes I buy more than one at a time. I use them as decorations and toys. Yeah,
don't we
that's
all?
pretty much it, because you can only carry one or two or three. Okay, there's guys that are like, well, I carry 3 knives all the time. I'm like, do you really? They claim they do. I've talked to some people, and they're like, yeah, I legit carry 3 knives: a fixed blade, a main folder, and a smaller folder. And I'm like, okay, good for you. I don't, but okay. So, but yeah, and John and I have to get together because he's 45 minutes that way, and we've talked a lot and never really just made something happen. So we got to do that.
I only ever carry one at a time, and so I never really understood that carrying 3 at a time thing.
I mean, I carry a small little Swiss Army at the bottom of my pocket that has like little scissors and tweezers. So that's always in my pocket with my main. So that I don't really count that as a knife per se.
I always have that SOG key one. You know, it looks like a key and it's
the little one.
I wouldn't count that as but these guys are carrying like a battle, a Hellraiser, and a fixed blade, you know, or something along those lines. And I'm like, I just don't get it.
More power.
I tend to carry one knife, and I think most of the knives that I have are like more than capable of doing most of the tasks that are at hand, you know. So if, like, for example, although I don't know if you guys have ever been in that situation, because I carry all my stuff, and then like there's a day where you have something maybe a little extra nice, and somebody, you know, knows you as the knife guy at work and is like, hey, could you pull out your knife and cut this thing? And you're like, I'm not cutting this box not with this knife. I'm not.
Isn't that always how it works? You bring something really nice and special that you don't plan to use, and then somebody in the the group there needs a knife or something.
If it was to cut something that's not going to roll the edge, then fine, right? Like I'll use it. But if it's
we could have
like, you know, like that has a huge, massive thing, and I got to ship the knife back to like Russia, for example. You know, that ain't gonna happen right now.
Right? No, it's
so
just
maybe we'll pick something else to use. Maybe like the office scissors or something.
Right.
We could do a whole podcast of all of the times when people asked us to use a knife, and then they did something not great with it, and you just over time you don't do it. And this is the whole hilarious thing about this whole hobby, that we love knives, and knives are meant to cut, and then we don't want to cut stuff with them.
And when they ask to borrow a knife, it's like, well, what do you need it for? Like, they can't just ask to borrow your knife. You have to have a good excuse and a good reason why you want to borrow my knife.
Well, like, for example, my Herman knife has a really like fine polished edge, and that knife is going to slice through paper like nobody's business.
Yes.
But if you dig into cardboard with it, you're going to make that knife dull for no reason so fast. So like, I kind of like pick what and choose like what I want to use. Like, why would I use that knife for that when I got like a Spyderco that's perfect for.
That's
that,
why
you
for
know.
you in your office, you should just leave one of your Spydercos in your desk drawer. So when they do come to ask for a knife, you just pull that out of your drawer and you give it to them.
I have a blade, like a junky blade.
Yeah.
It's like it's a Leatherman, you know, like a big
Oh
Leatherman.
yeah, yeah.
I have that in my drawer at work. So if I want to cut something like with a bunch of metal staples
Right.
and crap, like I'll
Yeah,
use
you gotta
that.
have a little beater
That's
type
smart.
of tool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But I always thought that was funny, you know, when like I get that question and then I get this smile like,
Right.
I'm about to tell you guys, ain't gonna happen, not with this one. It's funny as shit.
I know it's a knife, but actually it's a piece of jewelry and you can't use
Right.
it.
It's
Yeah,
pocket
yeah.
jewelry. It's a man toy.
I'm
Okay.
like,
It's
"See this blade, it's got a hamon on it, man.
yeah.
You
And they're like,
that
dude, I just need
option,
to
you
open the
know?"
box, man. I don't need a story about the knife. Give me your rig of knives so I can open the box. Come on.
Do you understand how hard it is to sharpen this recurve battle blade?
Oh
You can't
yeah,
use this.
yeah. It's just
Oh, it's so true.
yeah.
So
I thought that
Gary
was
Turner
funny.
says that he has a Losha and feels like he completed a main quest.
Absolutely.
Yep. He
That
ended up
is one to have.
yeah, he says he got it. Good friend won the lotto at Friday Night Blade Affair and would not let me buy it, and wouldn't not let him buy it. So he still can't believe it. And now I missed Friday Night Blade Affair this year, Gary. I was planning to be there.
Oh, so you just got it, yeah.
I had never been to Friday Night Blade Affair. I always go to the California Custom Show, but I never, like, usually drove down on Friday or flew down on Friday or Saturday morning and just went to the show. Because I wasn't, like, big time to go to Friday Night Blade Affair. I was going to do that this year. And then about a month before, my son texts me and says, hey, do you got plans for this, 24th, 25th, 26th of October? And I'm like, well, kind of tentative plans. Like, what's up? And he says, well, like 20 minutes later, well, what if I told you I was going to get married? Would that change your tentative plans? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm there. Okay.
You got to do that.
I'm not missing the, I'm not missing the wedding for the show. I'll go next year to the show.
There's always another blade show. There's always another knife.
There's always another knife. And I'm hoping to God there's not another wedding for him.
Maybe ideally there's only one marriage and one wedding.
Ideally, there's only one for him, one for the other son, maybe later. But yeah, it's all good. So what do? I had to make him a custom knife. Well, I had to have a knife made for him because I don't make knives. So I had Mountain Cutlery, Gene Baldwin out of Utah, who's only been making knives for a couple of years. He makes more hunting fixed blades, and he also makes he started making some wedding knives. His daughter got married. So he's like, well, I make knives. I better make her a knife to cut the cake. So he made a nice knife for her to cut the cake. People thought that was a great idea. So they called him up and said, hey, can you make one for my kid? Can you make one for my kid? And we had him on the podcast a couple, month back. And we got to talking the next day. And I'm like, look, what's it going to be? And so we did. We built one. I think the video comes out maybe tomorrow. The full video, I did like an unboxing thing about it, but yeah, it's a chef type knife, which was really fitting for my son because my son is an actual chef by trade. So he thought it was super cool. We picked out the wood together at Blade Show West. It's a Baker Forge Firestorm Surge Damascus pattern with copper in it. Super
cool. Very cool.
Super cool. Crazy sharp. Gene says it's the sharpest knife he's ever made to date. And yeah, it was cool. So yeah, I went to the wedding instead of going to the show. Sorry, Gary. I'll see you next year. I was after a specific Barker, which I snagged from the lotto winner. So it was a good night. And miss you, Dirk. Yeah. So I've known Gary a long time, even before the knife community. We were doing off-roading stuff way back in the day together. So him and I go way back. And he's here in California also. So like in Fresno area, if I remember. But yeah, the wedding was fun.
You and me.
And yeah, he's right between us. So at some point, we all just need to meet in Fresno.
I'd do that.
Party at Gary's house.
What is that, like a 2-hour drive for you? 2-hour drive for me.
About 3-ish
So
for me.
maybe 2.5 for
Half,
me.
depending on where he is exactly, because
Yeah.
my brother is in Ripon, which is about 2 hours for me, which is a little bit north of Fresno. See,
Yeah.
Gary says it's a deal. So
See?
I think it's a meet and greet at Gary's place.
Right, Gary, buy the beers.
Pizza, and I'll bring some cool stuff. Because when I drive, I can really bring cool stuff. I fly with some cool stuff too, but I can just bring much more when I drive. Flying with knives and one-offs and it's a little nerve-wracking. Not gonna lie.
I've flown with knives and I've never had an issue. I do check them.
I always check them. I throw an air tag in there and I just go with it. It's fine. I've shipped stuff. Like I said, I had a box that was about 100 grand worth of stuff that I just shipped FedEx overnight, early delivery, call it good. That's how it works. I mean, we got to ship this stuff. And
Got to get there somehow.
A little bit, but when you're shipping stuff like that, time is the key. Don't do 2 days. Don't do 3 days. It's overnight, early delivery.
Yeah, me and Dirk have like talked about this. We always say that speed is the way to go, not like insuring all that, and that's all bullshit. It's just speed.
Like literally that
something super expensive, overnight that fucker.
Yeah, that particular box, or when I've shipped like non-flipper flippers and, you know, $10, $20, $30,000 worth of knives, we don't even do insurance. Literally, it's overnight, early AM. I drop it off at the FedEx thing at like 3:30, and they get it the next day by 9 a.m. And that's the only way to go.
You're never going to be able to claim the insurance on any of these things, so it's definitely not worth it.
So don't spend the $50 to insure it. It's just not worth it.
Nope.
Yep. That's what I was saying.
Quote self-insure. And yes, if it gets lost, I'm on the hook. Sorry. It's chances I take. That's the games we play.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I have a box landing at your house tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, I got the tracking. It looks like it's tomorrow, so that'll be cool. Good timing, all of that. So
sweet.
All right. Any other last questions from the chat group here before we kind of wrap it up? Because we've gone a little bit, like we try to keep it about an hour-ish. I think we've done an hour and a half-ish here and there. But yeah, but some of you local guys in California, we need to get a thing together, especially you guys in Northern California. I'm in Northern California. Alex is in Southern California. And where are you now, Frank?
I'm actually in Florida. I'm out in the panhandle of Florida.
Oh, all right. And were you affected by any of the hurricane storm stuff the last month-ish or so?
You know, I was not. I got very lucky, and all of those hurricanes hit down in the peninsula area and actually just gave us very nice weather. I feel really bad. We had the nicest weather of the season, and they were getting hammered by hurricanes. So no, I didn't even see a drop of rain from, what was it, Helene, and then the next one. Yeah.
Something right after, like the week later, 3 days later, there was something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. Some friends of mine got hit by both of them, and it was horrible. Like totaled a couple of their cars got flooded. The house got flooded a little bit. Like it was all bad news. And then I've got friends in Oklahoma that just got hit by tornadoes last night.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like literally, and there was no warning. They had like 30 seconds warning. Nobody could get to shelters or anything. My people are good. I'm sure there was some injuries and stuff along the way. But yeah, the pictures from this morning when my friend went down to help, you know, clean up and stuff, the pictures were like, Jesus, like house is just gone, cars upside down in the front lawns, roofs just gone. Like there's no, it's just gone. Don't know where it is. It's just gone. There's no debris. It's just gone. Can't imagine that. Like, wow. When
I was in the Marines, like our artillery school is shared with like the Army at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And the one time in my life I saw a tornado in person was there in Oklahoma. And it is an awesome display of power from nature. Like it's unbelievable. And it moves incredibly fast. It's just weird because you look away for a split second and look back, and it's already gotten like bigger. And yeah, it's Yeah, tornadoes, Oklahoma. That's
My
that's
dad
the
grew
thing
up
out
in
here.
the Ozarks in Missouri, and he talked about the force of tornadoes that he saw when he was growing up, like taking a piece of wheat, and shoving it through a telephone pole, just
Yeah.
because the force and this piece of straw that goes through a telephone pole, like wow. All right, Knife Life says, Doc, what was the most overrated knife you have handled?
Oh boy, I was hoping to get through this podcast without ruffling any feathers, but here we
Ah,
go. Uh, this is one of the problems with doing any of this is that you always have to upset someone.
yep.
Knife, most overrated knife that you've ever handled. Um, I have a couple of things that come immediately to mind.
Okay.
And Dirk, you're gonna get mad at me when I say this. Actually, I have to
Uh,
say the non-flipper flipper didn't. I was like, this is a knife that's so special. It's very cool, and everyone. This is like the holy grail of knives. Yes, like this is literally peak knifedom. And I got it, and I was like, I don't love it. The action is weird. It hits my fingers in strange places. The disengagement is funky. It's like not elegant in my hands at least, and it's hard to carry. It's thick, it's
you
heavy,
know, I, I'm actually not going to argue with you.
and so I'm not
I
saying it's a
love it.
bad knife. I'm not saying it's a bad knife, but I have to say I held it to the highest possible
Yes.
like holy grail standards, and I got it in my hand, and I'm like, I don't think I need to. I don't think I need this.
I was a little underwhelmed with it as well, I think, because like you, I held it at its high esteem. And
Yes,
it's uncomfortable on my finger. The flipping action.
it kind of is.
It's not like I want to
Yeah,
fidget.
that's right, Dirk. You're not gonna like that knife, so you're gonna have to just sell it.
I mean, I like it, and I like it, but why do I like it? I like it because of the esteem of it, I think.
I respect it because it's unique and the mechanism is actually brilliant. I get it. It's great. It's cool. But I thought I was going to need to have one. I thought I'd be blowing up Stan Wilson to send him $15,000 for a knife, and I got it in hand, and I'm like, I guess I don't have to have this, so that's okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of there. I own it now because I own it. I did a trade deal, and I thought I got maybe I think it was a fair trade.
We're talking about one of the two knives that I'm like, I'm done once I get one of those. Like I don't really care after that. One
It's
of them
it's
is
a
a non-flipper flipper.
It's a good knife. I'm sorry, and I don't. I'm gonna make. I'm
No,
making
no,
you the
no,
guy who
no, no,
invited
no,
me on the
no,
podcast. I'm
no,
making
he
him
no,
owns
upset
it
with
to
me.
make
no,
Alex
no.
jealous.
For
No,
me, no,
I
for
got
me,
it because I
I'm
really
very
wanted
happy
one.
to hear. I want to hear this kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that like is fun to talk about. So don't think like I
Right.
get offended in any way. I love this kind of chat. So
So
you can continue.
allow me to just explain that within my philosophy on collecting at this
Yeah,
point.
please.
I have a small collection and I carry them all.
Yes.
And if I don't like how it feels in my hand, if I don't like how it feels in my pocket, if I don't like how it cuts, it goes. I sell it. And so that is kind of where that comes from. And it's it's not that the in non-flipper flipper is bad in any way. It is absolutely incredible. It's the Lamborghini Countach of knives. It's so special, and no
Mm-hmm.
one can ever disagree with that. But it's one of
Yeah.
those things where, in my collection, in my philosophy, what I do is I need a knife that I'm going to carry, I'm going to use, I'm going to enjoy the ergonomics every minute of every day. And so for that reason, it was that for me. And so that's what I wanted to say.
I totally agree. And when I first got it out of the box, I was so excited, and I flipped it that first time, and it hurt my finger, and I had to learn how to flip it and learn how to disengage it, because it's the only knife you have to learn how to use, because it's not evident, right? Even though you've seen people do it, you need to practice and learn. And I was a little under impressed. I mean, it's a great knife, but I don't know that it's going to last forever. it may end up going to sell into Alex because Alex does want one.
Hey, he's smiling.
So I don't know, but
the other Grail in one of two is a rad cleaver. So obviously, like, practicality is not a thing of matter for me.
right.
And that's the thing about Grail knives is that it's something you just have to enjoy, and there is a role for the desktop knife that you don't carry, that you just enjoy, and you appreciate the ingenuity and the beauty of the thing. And you know that knife is beautifully constructed and stands attention to detail is second to none. And but the question is the question, and I'm just giving it an answer. Please don't kill me.
No, you're totally good.
And for me, it goes back to more of like the early years of knife collecting when those were like the superhumans of the knife making world. And it brings me back to, it's like a nostalgia thing. That's why those two knives are still on my list, you know, but it's got to be the right one of each one for me to want to spend the money on them.
Totally.
And, but yeah, Dirk's is the right one. That's a nice one.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Beefstick asks, thoughts on Nicholas Nichols, Gumpy, and Dreadnought. I'm not familiar with them, so
I'm not familiar with that either.
I'm sorry, I don't know what this question is really referring to. I don't know who this is.
I don't know either. So sorry.
I think he gave you $2. I'm sorry, Beefstick.
Thanks, man. Gary says Borka by far biggest letdown for him. Okay.
You know, Borka's a beautiful knife, and then you kind of get it in hand, and the action is kind of gritty and all these kinds of things. I really like these Marfione Borkas that they're putting out. These things are pretty wicked looking. I'd like to see what they feel like in hand. I have not really held one before.
CPM talks about Grail knives mark the end, which is why I'm pretty much stopped. Now, Grail it's an interesting topic.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole different podcast because I think it's thrown around way too much. For me, I had one Grail, and I have accomplished that, and I have not put anything else on a Grail list. There's other things I might want to own, but I haven't put them on a list of Grails. My Grail was a Frank Fisher Battle. Now, I didn't know that my very first one was going to be a full dress, you know, crazy 5-figure one, but it was. I had an opportunity. I bought it from a friend and I loved it. And then I went on and have multiples now. But ever since that, like, I don't have another Grail. That is
and I picked my Grail. I picked both of my Grails probably back in 2014, 2013, 2015 era. Like, and they're still the same two on the list. Like, and it's not like, I think I have plenty to sell that I could accomplish that, but it's funny how he says it marks the end because
it's a little different.
Does, but does it kind of?
I think it kind of does mark the end a little bit for me. Like, I'm not as excited about any other knives that I bought. I mean, I kind of am excited, but not to the level I was when I get a battle in hand. And you can have multiples of one Grail, like I do, like CPM does.
You know, and I would say, Dirk, I'm right there with you, man. That battle and that blade shape, 100%. I still have not bought one. I do not have an actual battle. I've had a bunch of knives from Frank. With that, I've had a few Furies. I've got the Battle Hawk thing, whatever it is. But I've never actually had a battle. And there's a nice Fury right there. Beautiful, beautiful. I still have a Fury in my collection, and I love it. But I still have that one out there, and maybe when Frank is, you know, making knives again one day, I can make that happen. But that's actually I'm right up there with you. That is the one. And thanks, Jim Skelton, just from the very beginning. You know,
it's Jim's fault because I didn't even know a battle existed until he did a video, and I don't think it was on this one. I mean, he did do a video on this one, but I think he did a video on his more plain.
I remember it like I have the picture in my head. It's the plain, and I think it was carbon fiber scales or something. Very simple. I remember that thumbnail still to this day. I was like, that's the one.
That thumbnail. I think I
Yeah.
screenshotted that one or one of his Instagram posts. And that when I saw that plain one, I fell in love. And then he did a video on this full dress one. And then I started seeing other ones pop up from, Doc Salva and like all of the people that have them. I started seeing
we
them.
just lost Frank.
Well, he'll be back now. Maybe he got tired of talking about battles. He got jealous because he didn't have one. I don't know, but
maybe his phone died.
Maybe he was using his phone. So,
yeah.
But yeah, the battle to me is the ultimate. We'll get him back on here. He's kind of coming in down below here. Needs to connect their mic and camera before we can let them stream.
If not, we've been here on an hour and 20, so it's probably
I just want to see if we can get him back on to say goodbye. But
yeah,
we'll do a Grail podcast at some point and talk more about that because I think that is a good topic, and I think a lot of people throw that around. And the Grail can be different price ranges. It doesn't have to be a specific price range.
Right.
But hey, sorry about that, guys. I clicked the wrong button.
Oh no, you're fine,
all good. Man. We thought your phone died or something, maybe. But I think we're kind of we're kind of beating the dead horse now. But anyway, Frank, thank you very much for taking some time on your Sunday evening, where it's late there where you are in Florida. And I know it's a little tough day today too with the time change and everything. So
hey, we got an extra hour today. It's fine.
Exactly. I still woke up at like 3:00 because I have sleep issues. And when I normally wake up is about 4:30, and it happened to be like 3:30 this time. So yeah. But we'll have you back on again if you so choose. And
you should do a part 2 with video, man.
Yeah. I really appreciate it. I would be happy to come back anytime. I know you guys probably have a long list of people, and I'm honored to be a part of that. And it's been a lot of fun. And this community is great, and I'm always happy to come back.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
See some of those beauties, man.
Thank you, Alex, and all the guys in the chat, guys, girls. Thank you. Let us know again in the comments who you might want to have on. We do have a list, but we always like to hear from you guys as who you might want to be get more details from. So with that, we'll say good night. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you all next time. Go ahead and stay on for a minute, Frank, and we'll chat and wrap it up.
Thank you.
All right. Make sure